Welcome to Executive Access, created for motivated professionals. This is your home for real talk with executives about their career journeys, leadership practices, successes, and learnings along the way. I am your host, Jamie Tazi. Today, I am speaking with Marc Marchant, CEO of LS3P Associates, an award-winning architecture firm in Charleston, South Carolina. Marc thinks a lot about culture and specifically how organizations live into their visions and their values. He breaks down for us why that's important and how to do it very effectively. He talks about how his personal belief system around finding ways to contribute helped him, and also as a senior leader, why he leads with empowerment. Marc is well known for creating strong, high-performing teams, and I found him to be incredibly wise and humble. Let's dive in. Welcome, Marc Marchant, CEO of LS3P Associates, an architecture firm in Charleston. We're so happy to have you.
It's great to be here.
Great. I said we, like there's like a bunch of us. It's just me. I'm happy to have you.
Strength in numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so much to talk to you about today, but I figured I'd start with the growth mindset question. Mm-hmm. What are you focused on to learn and grow these days, either professionally, personally?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not a huge reader of large books, but I do like to read short things. So I read a lot of articles. I try to do one a day to start my day. Things like Harvard Business Review or McKinsey or something like that. I've started talking to some peers in the industry, which has been a lot of fun. And I've got one peer who's my age, I actually grew up with. He's an architect. We don't get together as often as I wish, but he has a very small firm. We talk about what he's doing, what I'm doing, kind of compare notes. Got another peer that's in a very large firm, national firm, that I talk to every now and then about what he's going through. And then another peer that's in an international firm, same industry. So I try to do that to keep things fresh, share our trials and tribulations and a little bit of success along the way and catch up. And I think that's always healthy and good. I'm kind of like articles. I'm a TED Talk kind of guy. I like just searching things on leadership or design or things related to something that might be going on in my life and just hear a quick 7 or 10 or 15 minute talk about that topic, which is kind of fun. So those are some of the growth things I'm doing. And as I talked to you about earlier, we're doing some things in the firm that's exciting around some cohort growth opportunities with some of my partners and senior partners. And so I'm looking forward to that too. So there's a lot going on around growth, but I think ultimately it's always about how you can be better. How do we continue to iterate and change and make ourselves better and to serve our clients and to serve the people we work with.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah. I only found podcasts a few years ago. I think I was late to the game, and now I'm obsessed. Like I'll be cleaning the house and I'm putting something on, or I'm doing and just like taking a walk, whatever. So I hear there's a great one called Executive Access too. So. So, I have to start here. You are 25 years at LS3P. Yeah. You started out as an intern, right? Which is incredible and very unusual these days that you grow your career all at the same company. And so I'm really curious about what about your experience made you stay, and sort of, I guess, the broader picture is like, what should organizations and leaders be thinking about as we try to retain top talent in an organization?
I think maybe before we talk about why I'm staying or why I stayed, it's maybe how I got there, which was this idea that the firm I joined at the time, we were in one office in Charleston, South Carolina, and we've grown to 12. So a lot of growth over 25 years. But at the time, there was a lot of opportunity in the field that I was interested to practice, and it was healthcare design. And so I got a degree in healthcare design, and there wasn't a large healthcare practice at LS3P at the time. So the opportunity to come in and be part of growing something was really interesting to me. It was this kind of entrepreneurial opportunity within the context of a larger firm with really talented people surrounded. And so that's sort of what got me to LS3P. What's kept me there is similar. As we've changed over the years, there's always new opportunities to tackle, which is pretty exciting. And I think most importantly, it's the people that we work with. I have a phenomenal group of colleagues, that some of which I've worked with for 25 years or more, because I did a few summers, as you mentioned, some of which I've worked with for a very long time. And growing together with them is meaningful. When you have challenges in your professional life, it's easy to go to someone and work through those issues with them. When you have challenges in your personal life, they know it. They huddle around you. They support you, whether they're big or small things. And I think that makes a difference at the end of the day. When your professional life can create so much support around your whole self, that's a meaningful place to work, right? So I think that keeps me there. We're also in a constant state of change, which I thrive in that kind of environment. I know some people
you
don't
would have been good
enjoy
in
that.
technology.
Well, maybe, but technology is a little scary. But we're always changing, and technology is part of that change, right? So when I started in the profession, the first job I had, we were drawing by hand, pencil and vellum, and it was sort of what I was taught in school. And then quickly technology began to evolve and enter the workforce. And so we've gone through different iterations of technology, and I was an early adopter to those things, and I embraced those things quite well. And I think, again, the opportunity to try things new, to embrace change, to take change as an opportunity to advance myself or to advance a project or to advance a process, those things get me really excited. They keep me engaged. And to this day, I think we're still doing that. We're in a constant state of positive, productive change. And to me, that's healthy. It's and that's what's really kept me there. People, the place, the change environment, the positive change environment, all good things.
That's great. I was at Microsoft for 20 years and that's exactly how I felt every single day. There were so many changes. Funny enough, when I left Microsoft, the outside perspective was like, man, you were at one place for 20 years. Do you know anything? Especially when I started working in the startup world, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that's wonderful. So how, we'll start talking in a little bit about how you create the environment for that so that that's everybody's experience that's coming up behind you and continues to be at the organization.
Yeah, because you can't keep up with all the changes, right?
No.
I mean, you have to grow a team to support those things.
That's right. Excellent. So what qualities do you think, again, on this theme of moving up in your career from intern to now the CEO, what are the qualities that you think, you exhibit or if you would rather that you look for in others as you're, sort of building the right teams?
Yeah. I think a little bit of it is a learning mindset and this idea that you always have to be learning about new things, back to the change idea. And embracing the idea that you can't do it all as well. I mean, you can learn as much as you possibly can about certain topics, but in a firm like ours, there's so many offerings that we have, so many opportunities and challenges for projects or clients that it's realizing that you have to surround yourself with other people and allow them to contribute to problems as much as you want to contribute to that problem, right? And I think learning where you fit into the context of the firm is really important. And that's helped me grow. It's helped me understand that to be the best for a client, to be the best for a project, you really have to bring the best from all people and different ideas and perspectives. Repeat your question again, because I'm a little off.
Sorry. I'm famous for asking like 5 questions in one. So
that's okay.
You could pretty much talk about whatever you want because it's going to hit on one of my questions. No, but it was, just the qualities of getting you from intern to CEO and even if there's any inflection points along the way.
Yeah. So I think early in my career, it was sort of like being a sponge, doing anything that was thrown at me or seeing opportunities outside of my regular day or regular requirement for work to lean in and try to find ways to help a team or to explore something different, whether it was technology or a marketing proposal where I could maybe help a little bit. And so it was like doing those extra things and getting comfortable with learning about things that you don't really love to do. Not because I want to do things that I don't love to do. That's not the point. The point is I want to learn about how to do things that contribute to the goal of the success of that project. And then by trying other things, some things you like, some things you learn that you do like or you learn that you're good at, I found myself aligning my talents with my passions. And I think that's a really important thing in the success of anyone's career, where you can find things that you really find joy in doing and you're pretty good at them, right? And so early in my career, this idea of being a sponge, asking a lot of questions, right? And then trying things new. And that led me into some technology that we were trying out at the firm that I did okay learning and sharing with others. It led me into this whole concept of getting uncomfortable, being in different situations, which I think gets the creative juices flowing. I think sometimes when we're when we're stretching ourselves and being a little uncomfortable, then we think creatively about how to solve a problem. And so I really enjoyed the client experience, getting involved with how to win work, how to create more opportunities for work by doing different types of projects. And that really kind of, I think, helped me grow early in my career. The other thing was, and this is a little bit my dad, sort of lessons from childhood, which is just do good work and people will notice, kind of keep your head down and do good work. And so I think people threw opportunities at me early in my career because they saw a desire for me to just engage and jump in, right? Not that I got it right all the time, not that I was always successful, but I was always willing to try things. And that kind of, I think, again, entrepreneurial spirit or just that kind of attitude attracts more people that want to work with you. And so you get to kind of try different things. And so I wasn't just doing design work. I was also getting involved in marketing work or graphic design, which was sort of a little outside of architectural design. I worked on different project types outside of healthcare, which I learned a lot about how buildings go together. And so I really got exposed to a lot of things because other people invited me in to do things that otherwise would not have happened without maybe a willingness to try and also an openness to say, hey, I just finished what I needed to do today. Can I help you with anything else?
I think that's so good. And especially the part where you said you had to push yourself, because it wasn't like, oh, every single one of these opportunities that's presenting itself, I'm so excited to do it. There was an active choice to do even the harder things.
Well, and one of the things I learned in my career that I practice now in a different role is this idea. It's a little bit about pushing yourself, but also being empowered to do so. I had some great mentors and managers that I worked for early in my career that threw a lot at me. And sort of said, figure it out and see if you can do it. And I got your back. And if you need me, I'm here to help you, but go. And that was one of the greatest gifts I ever received as a young architect, young in my career, because it gave me some confidence because they had confidence in me. I had a little confidence in myself to try something. They gave me space to succeed, which also gave me space to fail and learn things as I'm going along the path of trying to figure something out. And it helped me learn a lot about myself, how I work, how I deal with deadlines, the things that I don't do well, or in terms of time management or not. And so that idea of empowerment for me early in my career is something I've taken forward to my role now, where I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts you can give people is this idea of empowering them to do things, regardless of their particular skill set sometimes, because you want them to grow. You want them to stretch a little bit. That's a powerful thing. And if they don't succeed, that's okay, right? As long as you're there to kind of pick them up or push them along, that's okay.
Okay. So I struggle with this. I tend to be more of a mama bear, I think. So, but how do you get the balance right? How do you know when you can empower somebody as a leader and when you need to put a little more guardrails up? Is it more art than science?
I think it's more art. I think a lot of it is about feeling people out and knowing their strengths and knowing their shortcomings. I don't think you would ever give a basketball player the task of being a swimmer, right? And so it's how you align people's passions and talents to the opportunity at hand, and also empowering them to know when they're out of their lane, if you will, or out of their comfort zone or out of their skill set, so that they can go seek help, whether it's from you or others. But it's not always perfect, right? You can empower people thinking, oh, they got this, and they don't got that. And so how do you make sure you're checking in with them? Make sure you're giving them the resources to be successful. You can't just throw them in the deep end and walk away. You have to throw them in the deep end, show them where the wall is. If you have to throw them a raft, you throw them a raft, right? But it's this sort of empowerment with some trust mixed in and a little bit of rope that you still have your handle on just in case, right? And then as you grow over time, then you don't have to worry about that. Or as they grow over time, I should say, yeah.
What do you think it's in the way of that, though? What do you think it's in the way of leaders empowering their teams in that way?
I think part of it's ego.
Yeah.
I think part of it is a lack of trust. And the other part of it, which I think I feel most passionate about, is that people feel like they know how to do it best. And so they're not willing to let go of the control, which control equals power,
Like, do
right?
it my way.
Yeah,
This is the way.
That's right. And if someone does it differently than them, then that's not okay. I think one of the best things we can do is give people goals to achieve and let them figure out how to achieve them. So there's guardrails attached to that. There's timelines attached to that. There's certain expectations of achievement attached to that. But how they get from point A to point B is less as important, that they get to point B around the right parameters that you've set. And I think too often bad leaders want to hold their hand the whole way through or tell them how to do the thing that they need to do. And the better leaders create environments for people to be successful, give them a goal to achieve, and then get out of the way and let the people do it. They're probably gonna do it better. They might even do it faster. They might find a new solution or a process that makes you better, right? And then they can share that with others. And that's magic to me, you know, versus you saying, well, I've done this 15, 20 times. I'm just gonna do it myself. Well, you didn't grow somebody by doing that. And you sure as heck didn't grow yourself because you're mired in the same thing that you were mired in before.
You know, I wish I heard those words of wisdom early in my career, because I felt like for all the, you know, sort of first line leaders out there listening, really lean into this, because it wasn't until I became a very senior leader when I lost that expertise, because you as you grow in your career, you're not the expert anymore.
Right.
That I had to learn that lesson you just described around letting go and empowering out of necessity.
Yes.
Because I literally can't teach you the thing at a detailed level, right? And I feel like if I had practiced that skill early on, when I was still a lot of times people get promoted because they are the expert, right?
Yep.
And if I would have exercised those leadership skills sooner. So it's a little bit letting go, creating the outcomes. So for early in career, the idea is just try everything.
Try everything.
I'm picturing
be a sponge.
Be a sponge, or you have an empty toolbox and fill it up with as many things as you can, because you're going to be able to make the connections. And then empowerment lets people find out where their edges are. And that's where the growth happens, even in failure, right?
Yes. And I think also when you're finished with your task, or you're finished with the responsibility of that day, that week, that month, whatever, how do you find other ways to contribute, right? Which helps you grow. It allows you to work with other people, other teams. You learn new tricks from yourself. You learn from others. I mean, that to me was like some of the best parts of my career, was doing things outside of my own projects, because I was helping and I was also learning at a very high level, which is kind of cool. And I didn't always do that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, yes, there were weeks I was like, I'm done. I'm going home.
Of course. I mean, you can't be an all-star every single day.
No, heck no. I mean,
but there is this element, I think, that I'm hearing through everything you're talking. There's like a helper's mindset in everything, right? I mean, if that's really the way you look at your role, whether you're brand new, starting out of college, and you're in a role, your job is to contribute to, a senior leader. There's like this helper's mindset in there.
And people notice that. You don't have to do it and, beat your chest and say, look what I did. People just notice that. And that goes a long way.
I think that's great. What did our friend Elizabeth Burwell say? I say it's the biggest compliment when you quote other people. She said, you give the bare minimum, that's what you're going to get in return. That's what you're going to get back, or something like that, right?
That's right.
That's great. There's a lot of freedom in that, for somebody in earlier in career to say, my job is just to show up, work hard, and find ways to contribute and try new things. And my job as a leader is to empower the people around me to find their edges and to give them as much support as possible. As a leader, actually, it is freedom, because then you don't have to have on your shoulders that you have to figure out all the things. Sometimes you said people surprise you with what they come back with.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in the design world, in business of architecture, you want to find delight in something new and a design solution that may be better than something you could have come up with, because you gave people freedom to be creative. I mean, in the creative world, you want to create. I need to quit saying create. in the design world, you want to create a place for people to be successful within their own talents. And that's where some of the best solutions come from. So, and we actually, those things get embodied in buildings for what we do, which is kind of exciting. But in other lines of business, they may get embodied in a process or, financial outcomes or something like that. So there's always room for others to kind of flex their creative muscles, and you got to let people do it.
So I know in your bio, you talk about a team-oriented approach, and that is very natural for you. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about teams and building teams?
Yeah. Well, something I started to say when I got into some leadership roles in the firm was we've got to put the right people in the right project for the right reason.
Yeah.
And if anybody that I work with is listening, they're laughing hearing me say that because I say it a lot. But it's this idea that we all have gifts and we all have skills, and they're different than each other. And so every problem or opportunity requires a different skill set, and sometimes multiple skill sets. And so how do we put the right skill set in front of that problem for the right reason to accomplish a goal? And that, to me, is how you build the teams. Every problem, or in our case, we have projects, whether they be a K through 12 school or a hospital or a recreation center, or you name the project type, we have different experts that need to come in and out of that project at any given time. And so building that team of skill sets that happen to be people is really important. Just because you're available doesn't mean you're the right person, right? And that's hard because in the professional service industry, a lot of it's about, we have X amount of FTEs available to solve this problem. Let's go. Well, do you have the right FTEs to solve this problem? And so to me, it's about building the right team to accomplish that particular task. I also feel like as you grow in leadership, you can't, we talked about this a little bit already, you can't do it all. And so recognizing that there's other people around you that can help you be successful is, I think, a great skill. Because if you tap into that talent, they're contributing at a higher level than you are, because as you mentioned earlier, as you grow, you're not usually the best at solving a particular problem because that problem has advanced, or that how you solve it is advanced and somebody new can do it better. And so recognizing that and building the teams is really important. I think the other two is, how do you build teams where individual growth opportunity exists? And so it's building teams with vertical natures in mind, where you have deep expertise or experience, and then you have kind of novice expertise or novice experience, and how they can learn from each other, right? Because mentorship goes down, mentorship goes up. And so building those teams around right people also helps encourage development of people. And I think that's really important. How do we bring people along when we're doing this at the same time? I know that's a little off topic from the question.
No. That's great, because it tells me that just inherent in terms of how you lead, you're thinking about like generations of leaders and cohorts of leaders moving up through, and even baking that into the way you build projects on a daily basis as a tactical item, for example.
Right.
Nice. I guess this just popped into my mind because I learned a lot over the last couple of years working with Trident Construction. I'm on their advisory board, and I didn't really know a ton about the construction industry, but I learned a lot about what it takes to create a building, build a building. And, you got Trident, who does the construction side, for example. You are doing all the design side. Mm-hmm. So when you think about teams, does that involve like all the partners that you're working with to get to an end product, or are you thinking about your team approach like inside the four walls of LS3P?
It's both, and it also depends on the situation. So when we work with contractors, there's multiple formats that put teams together. One, the traditional sense is what we call design, bid, build. And so the architect designs the project with consultants, with engineering consultants. And we create a set of what we call contract documents. So the floor plan, the plans, right? The blueprints, as people might call them. Those are bid out by contractors, so they're priced. And then the client will pick the most appropriate contractor to build the project. In a design, bid, build scenario, it's usually based on price, not necessarily on qualifications. And so then the architect and the contractor are put together, and you work together. That's a traditional model. Something that's a little more commonplace these days is a CM at risk, and Trident does a lot of this, and Tim may have talked about this a little bit with you, but where the architect begins the design process, a contractor is brought on early during the design, they begin to price it and work with the architect, and back and forth together, they make decisions about design, quality, cost with the client. A final solution is created on drawings, And then the team goes together and, the contractor constructs the project with the architect observing construction. But the earlier that team is built, the more successful the project has, I think, in general, right? And then there's design build where the architect actually works for the contractor.
Interesting.
And oftentimes the contractor will select the architect with the owner. Again, opportunities for teaming early on, but it's like any other.
It's like all the
problem.
same thing, whether your team is inside your four walls or not.
That's right.
All treated the same.
That's right. And who we put together in our four walls, depending on the project type or the contractor, might be very important. If the contractor's done 10 projects with project architect A and project manager B, that might make some sense too, right? And so there's all these decisions that you want. It's right person, right project, right reason.
Right person, right project, right reason. Yeah, I'm doing a lot of work right now with some organizations that do a lot of partnering, whether that's in technology or otherwise, and thinking about the skill sets needed to partner well together across teams and having to think about your organization and my organization might have slightly different goals and how do we create wins and all those kind of things.
And some people have highly technical skills and some people have really good soft skills.
Yes.
And it's rare to find both in one person, right? And so you have to, the team dynamic is very important.
Excellent. Okay. Very, very good. So culture. We were on the board of Porter Goud together, and I was really passionate about mission and values and some of the work I do. And every time I would talk about it, say in a meeting, there you were leaning forward, talking about the same thing. I'm like, he's like my twin or something as it relates to this. So I know culture is so important to you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the intentionality that you bring to a focus on culture within LS3P?
Sure. When you think about vision, it's really the compass for where you want to go, right? It's aspirational goals wrapped up in this great statement or concept around where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years or 7 years or whatever. And then you have your values, which are foundational to your company. They're the place you go when all else fails, you go back to your values. They help you identify the character of who you are and why you exist, right? And so if you take vision and values and perhaps apply a mission as well, we do at our firm, to me, that creates an overarching construct for culture in the firm. And so we know where we want to go. We have foundational things that keep us planted in where we are. And then we have the way we do it, which is our mission. That is something that helps guide our entire team. Of 12 offices, 500 people. And then we have these 12 offices, right? And they have their own cultures within that bigger construct. And what I love about this idea is that the first thing binds us together. That overarching vision, mission, values binds us together as a team. And the individual unique cultures of each office gives them their own sort of flavor and character and entrepreneurial opportunity to be who they are and serve the communities in which they live, and complement the overarching culture of the firm. And to me, when you allow those two things to happen, you get some pretty cool things happening, right? It allows you to get behind sort of the same mission for the firm, but give people different opportunities to find ways to implement that mission or implement that vision, if that makes sense.
Great. I love how you link that to the local communities. The local communities they serve might be different just in their needs and how they need to address. But you said something, the vision guides you, the vision and values guide you. It implies something active, right? Versus going through an exercise and kind of putting them on your website. Can you talk about how you make that, how it guides you? Like, what are the things that you do?
Well, in our particular vision statement, we talk about design excellence, innovation, expertise, collaborative engagement. Those are sort of the four tenets of our vision that's all wrapped around this commitment to the Southeast. And if you took all those different words, our vision talks about those things. And so design excellence is an aspirational goal. We are always striving to do our best work to create solutions that have high design outcomes. And those are about function. They're also about aesthetics and creating urban context and beauty within the environment, right? So that's design excellence. This idea of collaborative engagement, how do we leverage the best in everyone to create the best solutions? It's back to what we talked about earlier. It's putting together the best teams. It's making sure that regardless of where you sit in your seat in what office in the firm, that you can contribute at a very high level to create better design solutions. This idea of deep expertise, which is how do we develop our people to be the best healthcare architects or specification writers or contract administrators out in the field during construction, or marketing professionals or accountants within our finance group. All these things about growing expertise in all of our people. Again, these are aspirational goals that might take years to develop, but they're part of our vision, which helps create a path for us to grow, right? I mean, if the individual's not better in year 2 and year 3 and year 4, we failed. If the way we design our projects is not better in year 2 and 4 and 5, we failed, right? If our design outcomes, if we're not winning more awards or creating better environments in our cities, then we failed. I mean, all these things are aspirational, and that's what our vision does. It gives us a place on the horizon to aim for. And when you think about the mission of that, sort of how you get there, you might go right for a while and then go, it's like sailing a boat. You tack and jibe a little bit. Ultimately, you're going to get there. But it's sort of how you get there is not as important that you get there. It's back to what we talked about earlier. Yeah. Let's don't prescribe the path, but let's create an overall sort of goal of getting somewhere.
So that's the link. I like to try to find threads, and one of the big threads is your leadership is about creating, getting very specific on describing the goal, right? Like if you can get really good about describing the goal, in this case, we're talking about the vision, then more latitude around the how you get there.
Yeah.
How does your vision link up with your decision making?
That's a great question. So I think if you overlay vision and values to big decisions you have to make, strategic decisions, and those decisions are not aligned, then why are you doing it? Or right? Our vision starts. The first sentence is in our commitment to the Southeast. All right. So we've grown over time by way of merging with other firms around the 4 states that we're in, and but often we'll get a call from an M&A consultant, or you hear from a friend in the profession. Well, there's a firm in Pennsylvania. They're just like you guys. It'd be perfect. Well, I mean, it's very easy. How do we overlay our vision? It doesn't fit. Why should we be distracted with this kind of thing, right? That's a very simple example.
It's a great example, though.
But anything like that, when it comes to hiring an individual, do their attributes align with our values, right? I mean, that's really important. Or if we have an employee that makes a decision about how to treat a client or how to treat a colleague, was that aligned with our values? And if it wasn't, we need to address that. So all those things, vision, values, mission, need to be the filter by which we make decisions about process, people, growth, strategy, financial investments. If they're not aligned, then why are we doing it? Which is really kind of easy. Is really kind of a lazy way to make decisions if you think about it. But it gives you that first opportunity to if you apply that filter, to say, well, if it doesn't meet any of these, then why are we doing it? If it does meet these, then the hard work really starts, right? So absolutely.
So I don't usually meet a senior leader that would disagree that a focus on mission, vision, values is needed and is important. But I don't always meet people like you who are just so passionate about like making it core to how they lead, or even a priority. What advice would you have for senior leaders about, I think step 1 is, go through the process of making sure, creating them or revising them or making sure you're in alignment. But
absolutely.
What other advice do you have? Because I worry that sometimes it stops there. We have them, we pop them on our wall, and then it's just kind of like, that's
right?
it.
I mean, you do a strategic plan, beautiful book, everybody reads it, boom, it's on your shelf, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think trying to be intentional about using your vision, your values, and when you speak, when you write, when you have opportunities where groups of people in your firm are together. So when our shareholders are together, I try to find ways to address different things in our vision or our values when I'm speaking with our shareholders. If I'm speaking, I had a chat we had 30 summer interns this summer from all different types of schools, and I had about an hour and a half session with them a few weeks ago before they all left to go back to school. And I took the opportunity, and it was pretty subtle probably, to talk about vision and values and some of the things that I was sharing with them around what they might want to focus on in their education, or why we do certain things the way we do at LS3P, because they're reflective of our vision and values. I think, and this is harder to do, how do we even get that kind of activity when we go interview for a project in front of our client? How do I get my colleagues and our teams to open with, this is what our firm's vision is about, and here's how it relates to you and your vision. So we're starting to align corporate visions or values with each other, which is a powerful thing. And if both institutions believe in them strongly, that's a pretty solid place to start, right? With any kind of company. It's just like when you make friends with someone, you have a lot of things that are similar. Why wouldn't you want to do the same thing to your clients, right? So I think as a leader, how do you find intentional ways to always bring vision and values to the forefront? It's hard to do. You have to be very intentional about it, right? Yes. But it's hard to do. And so even in writing firm-wide emails or messaging, or if we're going to publish something like a year in review, the vision actually becomes the framework that we create our year in review every year. And so it's a constant, it's constantly present with our people. And hopefully that becomes part of their lexicon then as they go out into the world and do their things. When we serve our communities, when we serve on boards or committees or whatever, how do we then take our vision and values and take them out into the world? I mean, that to me is like the ultimate prize if you're able to do that. But those things take years. Right. I mean, our vision is a fairly new statement that we developed back in 2019. And so here we are in 2024, 5 years later. And you might say, well, why didn't everybody, know it, the tip of their tongues? And well, we've hired 101 people this year. So that's 100 people we got to get there. And then it has to be lived as much as it is said, right? And that's hard to do in any organization. But leaders have to be intentional about it. And I think my job is reminding folks of that. And you asking the question reminds me that I probably need to do better job doing it.
I think a lot of leaders feel like they're talking about it too much. And I think
it can sound exhausting, right?
But I think the reminder and over again, and what you just said about living it versus just saying it, I think when there's a disconnect for what people experience when they engage with your team and what you say they should experience, that dissonance can be really harmful. Yeah. I just thought of a funny story. So whether it's at work or at home, I think you're talking about it exactly the right amount of time. If, like my kids, you hear things like, I know, Mom, growth mindset, or they say, I know, it's because we're Tazi, I get it. You start repeating those things back to you. Hopefully your team is not as sarcastic as my teenagers are. I think you're probably at the right level.
But when you think about that, like when your kids say, I know I'm a Tazi, your name is the most important thing to you, right?
That's right.
Integrity, character, all that kind of stuff. You don't want them to,
Exactly. Like we're LS3P.
Exactly.
And they have some swagger around that.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I think that's exciting. And I do think that, especially now, in the environment that we are living and working, and these new leaders, future leaders are coming up, they're looking for something a bit more meaningful than just doing the job.
Which is also a reminder that vision evolves over time, right? We created this vision in 2019, as I mentioned earlier. In 2030, we may reconsider that, right? We're actually getting ready to go through another strategic planning exercise. And our leadership team, our board said, our vision is still very strong and relevant. We believe in it, and our values the same. Let's continue to evolve that, which I think is powerful. It means they believe in it, which is unbelievably powerful, and it also means we still have work to do to meet the sort of aspirational goals that are baked in there, right?
Yes.
And I, as a leader, that gets me excited. We haven't gotten there yet, so we got more work to do. And then who knows? In 5 years, we may change it a little bit, evolve it a little bit, and that's okay. And we'll have other people that want to pick up that ball and run it across the line. So it's kind of exciting.
Now I see why you stayed there for 25 years. You guys are always moving and changing.
You have to be.
Always evolving.
What's the old saying? If you're not changing, you're dying, or
well, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about books you're reading, but just real quick, this might seem really odd, but a few minutes ago you talked about, you were just saying, hey, there could be the buildings we create and build and design and this, and then you said, and create beauty. You used the word beauty. And I had like this very strange emotional response. Like I was just like, beauty, like I felt something. Why did that happen to me? Like this word beauty.
Well, think about a place where you've been in your life.
Okay.
And you felt at peace, or you felt joy.
Yep.
or you felt great contentment, right? You weren't distracted. You didn't feel enclosed. Think about that, right?
Yeah.
And it may have been somewhere in nature.
Right.
It may have been a building you walked in. I hope it was a building you walked in.
It was LS3P.
I've had experiences like that where you walk into a building and you're sort of in awe, right? That to me is, if we can achieve that as designers, right? If a child can walk into a school and be in awe of their environment, they're already farther down the path of being successful, right? Just because the environment is a safe place to be, it's comfortable, the daylighting's good, the air quality is good, they can hear the teacher, the lighting's good so they can see what's on the page, see what's on the whiteboard or whatever. Creating a place of beauty and functional clarity allows people to perform and be happy wherever they are, right? And so that's really the goal of the architect. We're licensed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. That's really what we're licensed to do. But if we can do that and also create beauty in the spaces that we design, I think we've done the best that we can do, right?
I love that. I agree. I think it's much needed in this world. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for indulging that question, because
Sure.
I'm a coach and it's my job to notice things that are nonverbal.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm more in tune to like noticing it in me, and I'm like, that is so strange.
Yeah.
Why did I feel like I almost had a little tear in my eye when you said the word beauty? Okay, sorry, we digress, but I just had to. I had
it's
to
good.
know.
It's a
See,
great
the curiosity thing. What other? You mentioned you like to read. Are there any books or frameworks that were especially important to you as you think about your leadership?
Oddly enough, my wife knows me better than anyone, and that's not odd. I didn't mean that, but what's oddly enough about that is she often buys me books that are perfect for me, if that makes sense. And shortly after I was given the opportunity to step into the role I'm in today, she bought me this book called Way of the Shepherd. And it's a very simple book. You can read it on the beach in 2 hours, which is my kind of book. I don't like these growth books that are, 400 pages.
I'm reading Les Miserables right now. It's like been a two-year process. Anyway, back to your book.
Anyway, so it's a great little book. It's something like 7 Habits of Leadership or something like that. But the short of it is, it talks about the concept of a shepherd leader, servant leader. I mean, many people know that term.
Sure.
This idea of leading from the middle. And she gave it to me because she knows that's my style, right? And when I read it, and of course she read it before she gave it to me, because that's just how great she is. But what was wonderful about me reading it is I identified with a lot of the things in there. And it also reminded me too that you think of a shepherd as sort of a loving guide for the sheep, right? Mm-hmm. But they also have to be tough and tenacious and make decisions very quickly if danger approaches, or if one of the members of the herd is sick or ill or not doing well, that can affect the viability of the whole herd. And so there's some tough stuff in that book too about how do you deal with challenges in the workplace. But the overall essence of it that I appreciated was it was about creating environments for people to succeed. Safe pastures is what they call it, right? So how do you create large areas of people to roam, explore, find the best of themselves within the workplace, but also give them strong fences to keep out danger, and also keep them in the guardrails of what you're trying to do, right? You don't want to get too far out there. And I love that kind of dichotomy of sort of safety and exploratory place. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's part of the reason that book spoke to me so much. And then also this idea of the shepherd being in the middle of the herd or of the flock and leading from the middle, knowing that some sheep are going to go forward and chart the course and others will follow, knowing that if some sheep get out of hand, the shepherd has the staff to kind of bring them back in with that hook, bring them back in, or you turn the staff around and you poke them a little bit and push them along, right? And then sometimes the shepherd might fall backwards and let the sheep just kind of go out there and do their thing and explore and make mistakes and have great success and do things that the leader could never even fathom. And sometimes the leader has to go up front and sort of lead them along, right? I love that concept for any leader. And so that book really spoke to me. I've given it out to 40 people probably or more.
Nice.
I feel that strongly about it. So that was a great book.
Great, thank you.
I'm currently reading a book called Think Like a Horse. It's about a horse
You
trainer.
really like these like animal analogies.
It's all about animals,
I
right?
get it.
It's better than Animal Farm, I guess. But think like a horse. But it's about feeling people. It's about how you read people. Just like when you jump on a horse, how do you feel a horse? And I've also read a book more recently called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and he's an entrepreneur. He's in the tech industry. Jamie, I don't know if you've heard of him, but the book's really about wealth and personal growth. But one of the things I loved about it was he gets into this concept of iteration and ideation. And so how do you come up with a concept and ideate and go through an iterative process where you create a better widget or concept or solution, and then you ideate again, and then you build upon the success of the last thing you did. And when you finally get there and everything's perfect, then you replicate it and you duplicate it and you do it over and over again. And for me, as a leader, I think that's really important for two reasons. One, you should always be striving to find the best way, the best process, the best outcome. And the other thing is, once you've gotten there, don't reinvent the wheel again. Take what you've done and built, whatever that is, and replicate it over and over again. And that's how you start building wealth, right? And whether it's real wealth, monetary wealth, or whether it's philosophical or mental wealth,
Bigger
whatever
impact,
it is.
whatever it is.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, so that,
that's
in
a
that
new
whole
one.
book, it was in like 3 pages. And to me, that was really insightful, and it can be applied to any business or any person. And I get excited about those kind of things. So
I think I need to join your book club. So I think you should just post.
I'm telling
like,
you,
or
when
send me
you-
a text every new book.
whoever the 5 people that listen to me today, just laugh, because I'm not a big reader. I am not a big reader, and my partners know it. But I like to read, again, little things every day.
Yep.
5 pages, 10 pages.
This is great. And I love how you're distilling it all down. So, this has been great, Mark. Thank you so
Fun. We're done?
very much. We're almost done.
Unbelievable.
Well, I know, right? That's been like 50 minutes already. I do want to wrap by asking you one last question. I ask everybody the same question. If you had to give just one piece of advice about leadership, what would that be?
I think it gets back to some of the things I touched on earlier, which is, how do you create opportunities for people to be successful? I mean, to me, the greatest joy I have is when I see people in my firm, people in my life succeed. And I hope I've been a part of helping them succeed, whether it's through empowerment or whether it's I walked along the path with them to help them, or I just create an environment or help create a space for them to be successful. When they succeed, it brings me joy. And also, and this is sort of the no duh, when others succeed, you succeed. If they're part of your organization, you succeed, right? If they're part of your family, you succeed. And so I think it's that simple, create an environment for people to be successful and support them in that quest.
I love that. When we think about others first and what they need and their success, it does have a way of coming back around and making us successful. Not that that's why we do it or the primary reason we do it, but it does. So,
and everybody learns along the way, which is the best part.
Well, that's a great final reflection for our listeners to reflect on. Are you creating the spaces for people to be successful?
Yeah.
Thank you, Marc. This has been outstanding. I so appreciate you, and thank you for that emotional connection around beauty. I'll be thinking about that for weeks now. You realize that, right? I'm like, why did I get emotional? Anyway, you have a great day. Thank you so very much.
Enjoyed it, Jamie. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Join us every Tuesday for insider access to executive leadership.